You're listening to Becoming CEO, where we share our journeys as solo founders to becoming the CEO of seven-figure businesses.
And these are our behind-the-scenes conversations as we figure it out. And these are things that most people just aren't sharing.
How do you accurately diagnose business problems and bottlenecks when you're not the one, boots on the ground dealing with them? How do you get confidence that you know what the right problem is?
I feel like for us, we have a couple different dashboards that we look at where we have specific KPIs that we're tracking per quarter, and we have a target and we're tracking our actual against it. And so every week I look at that dashboard by department, and we have a red, yellow, green chart as to bright red is it's off track, no chance we're going to hit it. Light red is off track, but still a chance. Yellow is we're not worried, but we're not there. And so we kind of have that chart. And so looking at that really helps take the emotion out. And I'm not the one that's responsible for inputting all of those numbers. So it kind of lets me come and start asking the appropriate people questions. And so that really helps me, I think, from the bottleneck perspective. The thing that I always find myself asking is, okay, well, there's a bunch of red, and we're still not sure why. The things that we're doing should be making them green. Why are they not? And then digging into that, it's well, are we actually doing the right things? Some of the things that are non-KPI driven, that's where I start to get does someone else really know why? And are the things that we're working on the right things? That's where I start to I don't want to say lose faith, but does anyone else know what the real issue is here?
Yeah. That's precisely my experience too. We are very quantitatively driven, prudent. I think we have great dashboards. We measure everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can quantitatively point to a bottleneck very easily.
Yeah.
Where it gets tricky is in asking the question, well, why is this an issue? Why are we not hitting KPI in this specific area? That's not always apparent or obvious, right? So the quantitative data will point you to, it'll get you in the point in the right direction. You're in the right arena, sure. But then getting down to why are things the way they are, and how do we solve the problem? That's where the quantitative data is not useful. And what I find challenging in playing CEO is when you're not hands on in that area. One is I start making assumptions. It's always dangerous, right? Yeah. Well, it's probably this, is probably that. And I have all kinds of biases that are informing those assumptions about certain team members, about certain dynamics in the market. I have opinions, right? But I'm not boots in the ground in that area. So my opinions are, don't tell my team this, but probably not worth a whole lot. And so you start making assumptions. And what I found is the more you have conversations with the team, and maybe this is all very obvious and I'm just catching on, right? The more you have conversations with people that are closer to the problem, the more nuance you get, the more color you get. And I just think I've wasted a lot of time. I don't know if time is the right word. I've wasted a lot of energy thinking that the reasons for the problem or the why behind it was one thing, when a simple conversation with a team member uncovered it was something else altogether.
Yeah. So are you not having then a proper feedback loop from the team so that you're hearing their diagnosis or action plan based on that area?
Well, I think what's often missing is the qualitative data. So we have this discussion internally on the leadership team, which is really helpful. Um, this notion that, quantitative data has to be backed up and complemented by qualitative data, which,
Mhm.
kind of embarrassing to say this out loud, I never really thought of it that way, right? Like when I think data, I think no, maybe it's my credentials as an accountant, right, from a previous life.
Mhm.
When I think data, I think hard numbers and spreadsheets and math. There's a right and there's a wrong. And
Right.
I never really thought of the qualitative data being a meaningful, informative source of data. And part of that qualitative data is the opinions and the considerations and the perspectives of the team members who are, engaged in that area of work. And I think, fault of mine is underutilization of that qualitative data, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the thing I struggle with is um the oh, you're hearing that. I'm hearing it differently. And so it's like when it comes to just qualitative, like the story that I can make from what so say like for example, like we're doing a lot of like client success research right now and like looking at from what are they saying their problems are in the application through to the sales conversation through to the kickoff call through to hey we're prescribing this stuff that's solving some of those things like are they are they in alignment and it's like oh well they said this so duh they need insert name of tool and someone else could hear that and be like no like they need to do this first and it's like how are we both hearing the same words we see the same we're looking at the same person yet I think that we should go this way and you think we should go that way that's where I kind of get hung up it's like the person who I'm dealing with definitely has more of a pulse on the proximity to the client. I always look at like I'm looking at all these other factors and I kind of just make the assumption that my person is not doing that, but I don't even know. So it's like you can just interpret things in so many different ways that um yeah, how do you then resolve that?
Which is really a feature when you think about it, right? Like that's healthy to me, is this interplay between and this feedback loop between the people that are, hands-on, boots in the ground, engaged in the work and
Mhm,
directly interfacing with the prospect or the client or whatever it may be, and management and leadership is
mhm.
obviously the people closer to the problem have more data and probably a more informed perspective. They also have blind spots because
Right.
they're too close to it, right? You can't see the picture when you're in the picture. And so I think
Right.
leadership management's job is to ask questions, challenge assertions, challenge assumptions, challenge biases so we can get
Mhm.
to the truth, because I don't think you can do that on your own. That's why people have coaches, right?
Yeah.
That's why people have mentors. That's why
Right.
employees have bosses to challenge some of their thinking. And at the same time, guilty as charged. The leadership can't just assume that they know everything and that the folks who are more engaged with the work are just getting it
Mhm.
wrong. That's a
Yeah, we
fault
have
of the
our own
culture.
bias as the leader too.
100%.
So I guess
Which is, I think,
like with this kind of situation or realization around the qualitative versus the quantitative, like to like zoom back out, like is there a problem that now exists that we're trying to solve for? Like I guess what has this led to for you that has us discussing it? Like what problem are you trying to solve for?
yeah, so for us in particular, I'm trying to get my head around a certain hesitancy that I'm seeing in the marketplace to engage. And there is a hesitancy, and we're seeing that our clients are reporting it, prospects are reporting it with their clients, and we're seeing it with our clients. There's a hesitancy to engage that didn't exist, but it's hard to pinpoint where that hesitancy is coming from. Is it the
Mhm.
way that we're framing things? Is it, the first call that happens with an appointment setter? Is the second call that happens with a consultant? Is it something in the advertising? Is it just some broader market conditions that are beyond our control?
Right.
Like that's where things get really gray, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and we can look at our revenue, we can look at our offers, and we can say, okay, well, that's off of KPI by X. That's easy, but why?
Yeah.
And I think it's been a really interesting experience for me. What it's teaching me is, in a manner of speaking, winning the game is about seeking the truth, not validating your opinion.
Mm.
And I just think I've done too much of the latter, right? Like looking for data that validates my opinion because I have a human need to be right.
Right.
And we all have that
But I
need,
also
right? And
think, like, in at least in regards to the example that you spoke to, hesitancy to engage from clients, from prospects, et cetera, inside the market. And, there's a lot of factors that could be at play, like you said. And you could have a conversation with one prospect, and factor A is leading to their hesitancy. The next prospect, it could be factor B for that person. And so, like, there's a lot of different things. And so the the we want to be like, oh, it's the recession, or
yeah,
oh, it's the, like, we want to have one label to define why this hesitancy, as we're defining it or calling it right now, is leading to that. And it's like, the reality is it's probably different for
yeah,
almost possibly prospect to prospect, like at least from the sales side and from client to client. Because there's we talk about, I don't know if we've talked about this on the show actually, like, at least in our businesses, right? Like, there is our clients, there is it's not, our clientele aren't homogenous, like um like my buddy Phil Graham, who's in Ireland or Scotland. He works with online fitness professionals. Like, they're all online fitness professionals. And so, like, everything that, like, they all run the same exact strategies. And so, like, if something's happening in the fitness industry, they can very much speak to it as why it's how it's going to impact every single one of their clients. But, like, I have a client that has like, my client's client, their industry might not be impacted at all. And then you have the next client, their industry is being devastated. And it's like, it creates these, like, it's a lot easier for people that have really, really narrowed down niches and clientele, where I think some of these, like, oh, it's got to be this, like COVID, gyms closed. If you only serve gyms, you're like, we have to save everybody. Whereas, like, if you have 4 out of 100 clients that are gyms, yeah, 4 out of maybe 100 people might be struggling, but that doesn't mean everybody's struggling with that issue. And I think that's something that I struggle with, in our space. It's, we could have gone down a path where we only serve one particular type of person. I would have been bored by that model. But it would help align the more of the quantitative with the qualitative situations in some degree. And so it's like, if there's these moving variables, like for our market specifically, uh, what what can you really do? Like, it's going to almost always be, I'm going to make my best hypothesis as to why this is happening based on the data that we have and what we're hearing and seeing. And how do we approach it? Like, what do we do? And, like, how do we stay on top of it, because we might be wrong on this assumption altogether.
yeah. It's a really important point that you're making. And it's making me challenge things I said 90 seconds ago. I do think, like, on the one hand, seeking the truth uh, is certainly more valuable than validating your own assumptions and opinions.
Yeah.
At the same time, what's truth, right? Like, and how do you know that
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right when there's imperfect information? Um,
Yeah. And
Great
one,
book
and
called
if you were looking
Thinking.
at clients and prospects, their truth,
Yeah,
like, we're looking to them, right? Like, we're looking to our market and our clients, like, what's really happening so we can help, right? Like we can adapt our solutions, we can help you problem solve this. But each client's truth is slightly different. What they're experiencing because of their market, their skill set, where they're at, their reserves, their, their current situation kind of becomes unique. And so it's like it's becoming, and I think this is going back to like, oh, let's paint a picture on like what's happening in the marketplace. I hear plenty of people right now that are like, the coaching industry is going through this together. Like we're all struggling with this. And I think that that's part of it because the big thing has been group, right? And I saw this conversation the other day of like group coaching, the way that a lot of people are doing it is unscalable and will have retention issues if there is no small group or one-on-one component, because those are the things that those are the ingredients that are going to give you the pulse on the individual people that can then allow you to have a solution for the individual people which make up the collective. And it's like if only 5 out of 10 people are suffering and you treat, everyone as if they're suffering, the people who aren't suffering, they'd be like, what the hell? Like, why are you dragging me down? And vice
Yeah.
versa. And so I don't know. Yeah, it's super interesting.
I
In
think
that
I think
regard.
maybe seeking truth was the wrong frame. I think it's really more about seeking to understand causes and
Mm,
trends.
yeah.
Um, whether that be what's going on in client industries or macroeconomically or on the
Mm,
competitive landscape. These are all causes. And to your point, I think my one of my big takeaways from this conversation is just being okay with there being multiple causes. Right? Because
yeah.
you're right. Like we want there to be one. We want to say like, okay, here's the one thing that's X is causing Y, therefore we should do Z. And it's
Right.
at a certain level. I mean, you could probably argue in all cases, but certainly at a certain level, it's just not that simple anymore. Right?
Yeah.
There's X, Y, and Z are all causes.
Yeah.
And what we got to do is without knowing specifically which cause is having the biggest impact because there's uncertainty
Yeah.
there and there's no way of gathering that information. I think my big takeaway from this is it's okay that there's multiple causes.
Yeah.
Because to your point earlier, the human brain it craves simplicity, right? We want to know that
Hmm.
X causes Y, and therefore we do Z. And
Yeah.
we probably as CEOs and owners and founders probably spend, at least I do, uh, too much time and energy trying to simplify what can't be simplified.
Mm,
It's just
yeah.
it's just complicated, right? There's just multiple causes, and I feel like the more what I'm getting from you is the more we just kind of get over that. There's just multiple things going
Mm,
on. It's a complex
right.
scenario, and there's lots of causes, and just get over it. You're not going to know which one is really having the biggest impact. Maybe they're all equal. You're not going to get that kind of clarity. So come up with your initiatives and execute and see what works.
Yeah. And as you say that, I think what couples the what as the owner for me, um, what makes that more intense, I guess, or the feeling of that more intense is, um, you kind of know the steps that you need to take or that you're at least planning on taking to, course correct or solve for the issue. And the things like the actual actions don't happen as fast as you'd like because it just physically can't happen faster. And then you start meddling around and like breaking things or inserting yourself in situations like Lisa was just saying to me the other day. She's like, you're working on this next week. Like, why are you trying to do it now? Like, you physically can't do it now until we have the thing that happens on Tuesday of next week. Like, you're being inefficient now and derailing me, the fact that I'm having to have this conversation with you because you're trying to solve a problem that we need the outcome of Tuesday next week. And it's like you start trying to like, what do they say that the being an entrepreneur is grateful for what you have, but unsatisfied with how fast you're getting it, or something like that. Like it kind of like those coupled together, I feel like it kind of plays into that. And you almost are like, how do we solve this? And then you seek more of the data, or like, how can I justify this? How can I? And it just kind of creates this, I don't know, maybe it's this unnecessary anxiety or feeling, at least for me, that is like, you kind of just gotta let the fire burn a little bit until you can know exactly what room it's in.
Yeah, I think it serves to reinforce something that we talked about in the past. Is just so much of this game is just patience, like letting
Mm,
things play out without necessarily interfering and making things worse, right? I think you gotta I think you gotta really find the joy in the circumstances, even when they're
mm,
challenging and difficult, and let things play out as they do, and then make your moves, make strategic moves, smart moves. And strategic smart moves are typically proactive and not reactive. They typically take longer. They're not quick fixes and band-aids.
yeah, and I would say to that though, like, I mean, despite all of that, the that patience that you talked about, you've said it on previous episodes as of recent, like, I don't think, and maybe I'll speak for myself first, you can confirm. I'm not in a season, nor do I think the market is in a season where I'm like, I'm trying to like hire tons more team and create things, put things in place that create more pressure on our current situation. Like, there's the waters are unsettled right now. Like, we're a few factors we believe are leading into that. Like, do we have cash on hand? Are we secure? Are we like lean? Are we mean? Like, are we in a position to navigate this? Like, pretending like it's not happening and not preparing for that. Like you could go get another salesperson if you wanted, or you could just take a handful of sales calls like you've been doing, which mitigates some risk, keeps some more money inside the business and inside your pocket, makes you a little bit more agile for if something does happen. But like, some people that don't acknowledge some of these things and just keep playing the game as usual, they run out of cash, and that's the ones that disappear. And so, like, being proactive, I guess my point is also not like, uh is also considering like, how do I, like, what sort is my status in right now? Like, some people might not have enough cash on hand, or they might actually need to let some people go to extend their runway if things do get worse, if they've seen any sort of decline or hesitancy inside their market, and they might hold out on that, and it might just make it harder, And so I think finding that balance for each and every one of you that's listening, and myself included, like, hey, are we good with where we're at? How far can we make it based on what we're seeing? And are we quick enough? Are we going to be quick enough to move should we see XYZ trigger, like, play out some of the hypothetical downsides? All right, if this might happen, we don't think it would, but if it did, what's our move? Like, oh, we got to let this one person go. Okay, cool. Like, we know we can make that move if we have to. We're not doing it yet, but like, I think you can prepare. So that proactive piece, you can proactively kind of have a couple moves in your back pocket.
Well, I'm convinced. Thanks for your help today, Greg. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. That'll be
What do I owe you for the
$1,000.
consult?
uh,
Checks in the
yeah,
mail.
perfect. Um, yeah, hopefully this is helpful. I would like to say, for those listening, like, coming up with these topics is, we want to be timely, and we want to be obviously honest and transparent about what's going on. And so there is a lot of talk, in the B2B consulting and coaching and training space, agency space, on these topics right now. And so, while we don't want to have the same episode every single week, like, just the us going through it and you guys going through it with us and on your own in your own businesses, we're all going to continue to have different perspectives and learnings from it. And so, we're not trying to beat a dead horse, but like, we're going to learn through this, as we go through it. So we might be bringing up similar topics, because who knows how long this might last. And so, keep that in mind. And if you guys have any takeaways from what you're seeing inside of your market, we'd love to hear that as well. Find us on Instagram. We got our profile pictures up and everything now. We're rocking and rolling. Take a screenshot of you listening to the episode, share your biggest takeaway, and tag us. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.